Coal is a sedimentary rock made up of carbon that generates electricity. The coal minerals are a fossil fuel, and the formation involves the lithification of peat. This process happens by decaying plant material in wetlands that turn into solid rock over millions of years. Coal contains various impurities such as sulfur, nitrogen, heavy metals, and potassium. When coal minerals previously buried in bedrock come into contact with air and water, the pyrite minerals are oxidized, leading to the formation of sulfuric acid and iron hydroxides. Mountaintop removal fill, or MTVF practices, involve stripping away the top 50 to 200 meters of mountain peaks and ridges to access coal layers beneath. To reach the shallow coal seams within the ridges, mining companies first clear the forest and then remove the topsoil. Explosives and heavy machinery are used to remove dirt and rock material to expose the underlying coal. These processes are regulated by multiple acts and agencies. In the United States, mountaintop removal mining is mainly controlled by the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act of 1977. This law permits mountaintop removal mining under certain conditions like restoration afterward.
Now let's get into the effects of mountaintop valley fill on the vertebrates and invertebrates that populate the Central Appalachians. There are many different species of invertebrates found in the Central Appalachians. There are large populations of amphipods and isopods, as seen in the photos to the right of the text. Invertebrate diversity is high in headwater streams in the Appalachians. MTVF would negatively impact the many species of invertebrates. There'd be a decrease in the diversity, population, and survival of these species due to the effects of polluting their environment with chemicals and waste during the process of MTVF. Many vertebrate species are also heavily affected by the impacts of MTVF. Several species of fish and salamanders can be found in the Central Appalachians. MTVF pollutes their environment with toxicity and decreases the diversity and abundance of these vertebrates as the quality of their environment decreases. The loss of life of these individual species has a chain reaction effect on the entire environment, as the roles that these creatures play are a key part of maintaining the other lives of species in the Appalachians.
Local environmental impacts of the mountaintop removal and MTVF. In the Central Appalachian Mountains, mountaintop removal and MTVF have severe local effects on the streams. Sediment ponds are created to dump the extra material generated through these processes. However, draining streams will often run through the sediment ponds, carrying the sediment and runoff further down the mountain, resulting in polluting a large portion of the surrounding streams with excess sediment. The loss of local soil is one of the most devastating and long-lasting effects of this mining. The variety of local soil that has been developing for centuries is homogenized. From being covered by sediment, being compacted, to the removal of soil, not only is the soil content being altered, but the topography of the land as well. Because of this change, the natural hydrology and ecosystems are disrupted. Finally, due to loss of soil and soil compaction, the porosity of the local soil decreases, resulting in higher annual water yields.
Survival of these.
The far-reaching environmental impacts of mountaintop removal and MTVF. There have been about 1.1 million hectares of forest converted due to the practice of mountaintop removal and MTVF. Many terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems have been affected by large amounts of coal dust and debris that are sent into the air and dumped into rivers and streams. There have been far-reaching effects on downstream valleys, where waterways branch out and send chemical runoff and sediment to collect, which can span for miles from the original source. An example of an organism that has been affected by mountaintop removal and MTVF is the cerulean warbler, whose population has gone down by about 70% in areas surrounding the mines. Some of the major health risks come from harmful chemicals being introduced into the soil and waterways in areas surrounding the coal mines. Sulfates that result from coal wastes have severe biological impacts on the wildlife and aquatic systems, and this change in the chemistry can very much alter how well the organisms are able to survive. There is elevated conductivity in the water from an increase in heavy metal ions such as calcium and magnesium, which increase the acidity of the water, which can be dangerous to aquatic organisms. The heavy metal runoff, such from manganese and selenium, can make the water unhealthy and toxic to organisms. And this has all been happening in around a 5,600 square kilometer range just in the Appalachian region.
Figure A is showing the number of at-risk species, and in the Appalachian region, it's pretty high and it's in the red. So there's at least 24 to 50 species that are at risk in this area. Figure B is an example of maybe some of the aquatic wildlife that is in the Appalachian region. And then figure C is the rarity weighted richness, and that's kind of species that are close to being a little endangered and are in need of some help. And it's pretty high in eastern Kentucky. If you can see right there, it's pretty red. And then figure D is the number of species by region. And as you can see, it's got a lot of species in eastern Kentucky and that kind of Appalachian region. And it's in the red, so 100 to 104 species, different species in that region.
Some ways local and longitudinal impacts are being mitigated are the CWA 404 guidelines, which require permit applicants to avoid, reduce, and fix any harm to U.S. waters to prevent damage to the country's water resources. Additionally, mitigation actions need to replace the lost stream resources and ecological functions, and the value of these resources must be measured before they are lost. For MTVF, compensatory mitigation usually involves creating new streams on the mining site and sometimes restoring or improving nearby degraded systems. Healthy streams play a crucial role in ecological processes like nutrient cycling and decomposition. However, mitigation plans for mountaintop mining have not yet focused on directly measuring these essential functions, though it is necessary to do so. MTBF projects damage healthy streams, and mitigation often involves recreating channels, but this is not true ecological restoration. Lastly, most compensatory mitigation plans use the natural channel design approach, which focuses on channel structure rather than ecological function, which often fails to restore biodiversity.
What can you conclude about mountaintop removal? Appalachia is an impoverished region, and strip mining and the coal industry can give opportunities for jobs and provide energy for the area. However, it is harmful for the people that work in the mines and the environments they take place in. Some statistics from our paper are one of the most severe and long-lasting consequences of surface mining is the permanent loss and homogenization of the forest soils. This destroys the vegetation and streams and wildlife for years and can take decades for the forest to fully recover from these mines. About 5,700 kilometers of Appalachian forests are buried, and 3,200 of kilometers of streams are also buried. The intense runoff from the loss of vegetation and compacted soil causes the water to not only be damaging to the rest of the environment, but it can also carry toxic chemicals from the mine into the streams, lakes, or ponds that contain healthy fish and aquatic wildlife.
What could be done to improve the current efficiencies in reclamation and mitigation? Current mitigation plans are to recreate healthy streams that were destroyed exactly. This isn't ideal because the topography of the land has already been altered significantly. Instead, it's more effective to reconfigure the stream. This involves removing what is currently damaging the stream, such as pollution, and letting the stream naturally restore itself. Allowing the stream to recover itself prevents the alteration of the land by having to remove soil and vegetation to recreate the stream.
It is